Kneel Before Blog presents Kneel Before Pod.
Hello, and welcome to the Kneel Before Pod interview segment. I'm your host Craig, and recently I had the pleasure of talking to Batman and Superman Battle of the Super Sons actor Laura Bailey. She played Lois Lane in the film. We talk about parental experience, taking on iconic characters, and finding the voice. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hi Laura, how are you doing?
I'm well, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, yeah. First question, just an easy one. How did you come to be involved in this project?
Was it 2 years ago now? Maybe a year and a half. I just got a phone call asking if I would do it. And I said, heck yes, 100%.
So the simple, they wanted you to do it, and then you did it.
I think Travis and my name got brought up at the same time. We're both actually with the same agent. So she was able to call us and be like, do you guys want to be married? And we're like, yes. Why not? That sounds great.
And this isn't your first time playing Lois Lane. You played her before in Injustice. When doing the same character again, but a different version of the character, how do you approach preparing for it? Is it in your mind the same person, or do you sort of look into the differences?
Well, I think it is the same character, but in a very different environment and very different circumstances. And that does change the approach with how you play the lines. That sounds weird to say, but this was just such a more, even though there's some scary moments within the film, I think it's such a fun story and the writing is so light and bantery that it felt very different.
And in terms of iconic characters, Lois is definitely up there, isn't she? She's one of the oldest around.
1938, baby.
Yeah. And you've played a lot of iconic characters. Lois, obviously, Black Widow, Mary Jane, Gwen. You've been both of Spider-Man's main love interests. That's an interesting one. Do you look into their rich and complicated and wide-reaching histories before taking them on, or is it entirely down to the script you're given and the role you're asked to play?
Yes, there's both aspects that are, I think, good. You can't avoid the history of Lois with this. I grew up watching the Superman movies, so she's a part of me. But with any role, if you get too deep underwater of all of the different iterations of their story, then you can make who they are in the current story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And this is a relatively new place for Lois as well, because she's a parent in this story, which is something that hasn't been covered extensively in media up until this point, outside of the comics anyway. Did you see that as an interesting challenge to bring to life and play her as a parental figure who's imparting wisdom? Yeah,
it was so fun to get to see this new aspect of her. And as a parent myself, Travis and I have a 4-year-old son together. I was very excited to get to explore that side of her. And I think Lois is one of the first roles played that is a mother since becoming a mother myself. So that was a lot of fun.
So you had a lot to draw on in terms of life experience then.
Yeah, I've played moms before, but this is the first time I've gotten to actually use experience for it.
I really liked the speech you gave as Lois at the start of the film about this altruism of journalism, which is a really interesting avenue to take, particularly when people are sort of mistrustful of the media and things like that. But it's this kind of old school 1930s view on journalism, bringing the truth to people. And you get the sense that Lois really believes that, and she really believes in what she's doing, even though she's one of the biggest compulsive liars on the planet, I suppose, keeping that secret that Clark has.
It's an internal struggle she has every day.
Yeah, and then lying to her child as well, or certainly just embellishing the truth, I suppose.
Yeah. You know what? I hadn't thought about that aspect of difficulty, but I think it's something that's so wonderful about the character. She doesn't lose that drive to seek the truth, even with journalism the way it is in modern day.
Yeah, and then there's a old school quality to the film anyway. It exists in this world where the truth is simply just the truth. She has that weird, complicated relationship with Lex Luthor about that sort of stuff that appears in the film as well.
Yeah, I love that we get to see the difference between John's world and Damian's world. This joyful upbringing that John has, and you understand that Lois and Clark have given him because of the way that he sees the world, as opposed to like the hard life that Damian has had.
Yes. Different backgrounds and so on. In terms of your voice work, so you create a lot of voices. You've done an insane amount of voice work, and sometimes you're playing different characters in the same project. So what goes into finding the voice of a specific character like Lois and making it different to anyone you voiced before?
It's very rare that I actually just do my own voice in a project. There's always some little affectation to it, at least. So when I started working on this, Wes was like, let's just hear yourself. just hear your own voice for Lois. I'm like, what? What is this? But it was great. It kind of made the performance more honest in this world. She just feels so close to me.
And do you spend a lot of time sitting just going over voices when you're preparing for a role, just trying to find the right one for, say, Lois or Gwen or Mary Jane or Black Widow or whoever?
It's funny. I don't go into deep mental thoughts about what am I going to do with this voice so much as soon as I think about the character, or as soon as I'm performing as that character, that voice just tends to come out. Obviously, that's in certain aspects. If I'm playing some weird monster or something, there's a bit of a difference there. But no, I think it just, depending on the character, depending on where they are in their life, it changes where it's placed in your throat and how you talk. I don't think about the technicalities very often of it. So it's funny to think about it now.
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear about the process that goes into creating these things, because it's all in what you hear. And like I said, you've played many roles where you've sounded completely different. It's one of those things. I watch a lot of the stuff you've been in, or have played a few of the games you've been in. Sometimes you hear a bit of familiarity in the voice, but it's still different. And then when you see the name, it's like, oh yeah, there it is.
Well, that's great. Yeah, it's funny watching some projects or playing games. There are some characters that I am able to forget that I'm playing the role. Even if it's close to my own voice, maybe just because of the way the lines are being said, I can forget that it was me. And I always think that's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah. Is there any characters on your bucket list that you'd love to voice that you haven't had the opportunity to yet? I mean, I suppose Lois Lane has got to be pretty near the top of the list of well-known characters, but I wonder if there's any others that you've not had the opportunity to have a go at yet.
Oh, man. I've gotten to play a lot of really fun characters. Not going to lie. I have not played Wonder Woman outside of the Lego environment or some odd iteration of her. So I think that would be a lot of fun. At least I don't think I've in a straightforward way. If I'm wrong, oops.
You've just done so much you can't possibly remember.
It's funny because a lot of times with an animated project, we don't get a lot of time with it. It'll be a couple sessions that you do, and then you don't maybe hear about it again for a long time.
And then it comes up and you're like, oh yeah, I did that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. There was the one time somebody had me signing a game, and I was like, oh, I'm not in this. And they're like, yes, you are. And I'm like, no. And then they showed me the cast list, and I was like, I am in that game. I didn't remember. Everything has secret project names. You don't know what you're working on.
Anyway, I think we're out of time, so thank you very much for your time. It's been great speaking to you. I loved the film. I loved your performance in it, and can't wait to see what you do next and which character you crop up as next.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much. That was my interview with Laura Bailey. All the best to her with the film and in the future. If you like what you heard, then hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher of choice. Please do leave a rating and a comment. As always, we hope you'll join us next time on Kneel Before Pod.